Right, hello, Roger Gerrish.
Dan.
Thanks very much for coming over to War Games Illustrated and showing us 7 Days to the River Rhine. Haven't we seen you somewhere before?
Might have done Western Desert, bolt action, other
That's
weird,
right.
wonderful things.
Yeah, you're becoming a go-to guy for any rules. That's because you're so good, Rog. It's because
or
you're
cheap.
so good.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's it. Yeah. So this latest one, 7 Days to the River Rhine, is in collaboration with Great Escape Games, isn't it?
That's correct. Yeah.
So Great Escape Games are the guys who do. They're probably most famous for their cowboy game, aren't they? And then they also do Iron Cross, which is a World War II game, and this one, I believe, which is a Cold War Gone Hot type game. This is based on Iron Cross, or it's got elements of it in there.
Yeah. I mean, some time ago we were playing Iron Cross, and I wanted to use some modern Cold War type tanks with it, and we just picked up those rules and just played around with it, and it turned out to be quite an enjoyable game. So we thought, well, why don't we try and take it and expand it out and actually write it up as a proper game. Iron Cross has got a very sort of solid set of mechanics, and it was just basically really changing those to meet the the requirements of a sort of Cold War game. Lots and lots of tanks with really big guns, lots and lots of kills and the like, high technology type stuff. So it's very much basing it on the sort of solid foundations, and then just enhancing it to make it applicable to that period.
Okay, and whereabouts are we in the Cold War?
We're looking around about sort of the mid-80s, basically when sort of the Soviet Union was at its height. Also where NATO was reacting and putting better and more competent sort of weaponry and high technology weaponry into the field. So it's sort of the most interesting point when you seem to get the most interesting vehicles and good stuff.
And is that what interests you about the period and getting involved with the rules? What could have been and getting those kind of vehicles and weaponry involved?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's an age thing for me. Grew up during the Cold War. When I first started playing wargaming in sort of the 70s and 80s, it was something that was always in the news. There was always the thought that something like this, as horrendous as it would have been, could happen. And the tanks were exciting and interesting. I mean, you forget the idea that you were only 4 minutes away from probably nuclear incineration if you lived in the UK, but it's wargaming.
All right, okay. Today's game we've been playing on a 6x4 tabletop. Is that about the average for the game?
Yeah, I think so. It can be played on a larger scale or even a smaller scale if you want, but 6x4 is what we generally play on.
And 15mm figures?
15mm, yeah. Again, it can be played with 28s or even with 1/300 to 85th scale stuff. But I like 15 because nice amount of detail. You can spend some time on painting your vehicles up. Looks good.
Okay, right, cool. And the number of figures that we had on the table, or models that we had on the table in general, NATO had about 3 tanks, you on the Soviet side had about 10 tanks, and then there were other vehicles as well, amounting to perhaps another 10 odd vehicles, and then stands of infantry between like 8 stands of infantry one side, 9 on the other. So again, is that pretty typical?
Yeah, something like about, usually, say my side was about 20 odd vehicles. Because it was an attack defence game, then Wayne had a reduced force, so he had about 10 in total. But that's the sort of the general what we look for. Lots of tanks, like lots of tanks. It is basically a tank game. It's an armoured combat game. Infantry are important, but yeah, about 10 to 20 a side is about right.
Okay, right. So the mechanics of the game, it's quite card heavy, or at least we're using cards, aren't we, in the game?
Yeah, we use cards. We call them tactical advantage cards, and it's just adds a little bit of variety to the game itself. What we do in 7 Days to the River Rhine is we simulate things like artillery and airstrikes. We don't actually have the mechanics. We don't actually have artillery on the table or the aircraft on the table. We simulate those with a sort of in an abstract form using cards. So you'll be given 5 or so of these tactical advantage cards for each game. And one of those, for instance, could be an airstrike. You play that card, and as long as you can spot the opponent and you can use your commander or a reconnaissance unit to do that, then you can play this card and you can bring an airstrike in, which is usually, as in this period, very, very effective. But at the same time, your opponent may have counter cards, or sort of an intelligence coup or an air defense card, and you can play those cards and trump those and basically stop them from using them. And there's various elements in there, various cards in there that are sort of, Soviet or Warsaw Pact specific, some that's NATO specific. For example, there's a card that's an infiltrators card, so it could be your territorial defenders or your Spetsnaz commandos. You just play this card and you can suddenly simulate an infantry unit suddenly appearing in a building and taking a pot shot at one of your precious tanks.
Okay, right, cool. So they had a bit more character then, don't they, the cards?
Yeah.
And then there's tokens as well in the game?
Yeah. What the way that the rules work is that you play command tokens. You have a limited number of command tokens that you can play, and to activate a unit, which could be a vehicle or a small group of infantry, you have to play one of these command tokens. And for every order or pair of orders that you give a unit, you play one of these command tokens. You can give additional orders, but the more command tokens you have, then you have an activation roll that you roll. So basically, if you've got 2 command tokens down, you're going to need to roll a higher than that, so a 3 or more on a 6-sided dice to actually activate. So you can carry on activating a unit, but obviously the more it's activated, the harder it is to actually do. The other element to this is as well that for everything that you do, your opponent also has the opportunity to react. So if you move a tank into the open, your opponent can react and shoot at it, or if you try and shoot at somebody, there's a potential chance that your opponent can react or move out of the way. And that again is done on the basis of a die roll. It's simply you need to roll a 3 or more to react. However, if you've got more command tokens on that particular vehicle, then you're going to need a higher roll to do it. So it's nice sort of interplay that it's not just one person does everything and then the other person. There's a constant sort of interplay between the 2 players.
Okay, right. And within the book itself, we've got army lists for the 2 main protagonists, the NATO and the Warsaw Pact. So within the NATO forces, we've got the obvious candidates? Like
well, we've got the big players. So we've got the USA, United Kingdom, Federal Republic of Germany, and of course the Soviet Union and the rest of the Warsaw Pact. But we've also thrown in some of what you might class as smaller players, but they influence the battlefield in West Germany quite a lot. So you've got the Belgians, the Netherlands, Denmark, the Canadians, and of course France. So you've got that ability to play some quite different forces. For instance, the French will be using quite different equipment from the rest of NATO, and countries like Belgium and Denmark that didn't perhaps have quite the same monetary clout behind them, using some older units or some units that have been upgraded. So you've got that variety, and you can pick a sort of a thematic army depending upon on the nation you want to play.
Okay, cool. And also scenarios in the book? Yeah,
we've got we've got generic scenarios in the book. So there's your standard meeting engagements, capture, breakthroughs. So you can basically tailor those as you want. So for instance, in an attack defense game, you'll probably have as the attacker twice as many forces as your opponent, and that's quite important because the one thing about this period, and as reflected in the game, weaponry is very, very deadly. So in this, if your tank gets hit, there's a very good chance it's just going to blow up. So you have to be extremely careful when you're attacking to try and suppress the opponent, because defensive weaponry at this period of time was very, very powerful.
Right, okay, thanks very much. Well, that's a very good and brief introduction to 7 Days to the River Rhine, and of course that's a game that's going to be available from Great Escape Games, and they'll be supporting it on the website. You can find out more on the website, and you'll be putting more stuff on there, I guess, Facebook page and all that kind of thing as well.
Definitely, fully supported.
Right, that's great. Okay, Roger Gerrish, thanks very much.
Thank you.
If you have come to this video from WI Interactive, then you will be able to read the accompanying article on screen. WI Interactive is the iPad version of Wargames Illustrated, the world's premier tabletop gaming magazine. It features video and other interactive content in every issue. Find out more by following the link.